Okay, so in this series of tutorials, I'm going to focus entirely on communication. Communication between you and your entire class, or communication between you and a specific student. So we're going to start off by talking about announcements. So announcements are great tools when it comes to communicating a universal message related to a single course to your students. And these are going to function essentially in a very similar way to the way that they function in Blackboard. So to start creating an announcement, you can either click here on announcements in the left-hand panel navigation, or you can click new announcement if you'd like to create a new one here. So I'm going to click over here just so that we go to the area where we will see all of our announcements. So I'm going to click on this, and this brings me here where I can then choose to just click add an announcement. Okay, so here is my rich content editor, and so this is going to be example announcement. All right, and I will then just type something, hello world. Okay. Notice that I do have several different options here when I create an announcement. Okay. And some of these we've already seen in our discussion video. I'm going to talk about this one in a second after I'm done exhibiting what this first type of announcement looks like. So example announcement, hello world, and I'm going to click save. So I saved this announcement. There it is. Now there's something you need to be aware of. You'll notice in the announcement I've created here, the students actually have the ability to reply to it. And you may want it to where students can actively reply to your announcements, depending upon how you're going to use those announcements. If you're just going to use announcements as a way of releasing information and you want this to act more like a news feed where students don't necessarily have the ability to respond to the announcements, then there's something you can do to prevent them from having the ability to reply here. If you want this to be more of a conversation where you make an announcement and then students can reply to it, you can leave this exactly as is. But you have two options. First, you can limit replies on an announcement by announcement basis. So if you think that maybe they're going to be, let's say that a large number of your announcements you're going to allow students to respond to, but then a couple you're not going to allow them to respond to, well, you can go up here to the cog, you can click on it, and you can choose to close this for comments. And this will now make this announcement closed for comments. So this is a one-way form of communication. Okay. So if I go into settings and I go into student view, when I come over here and I look at that announcement, so here's the example announcement, you'll notice I don't have the option to reply. Whereas if I had not closed that to comments, I would have the reply button here and I would be able to reply. Now, some of you may be saying, well, it's not that a small fraction of my announcements aren't going to have comments. I don't want any of my announcements to have comments. And I've got 50 announcements I'm going to create for the semester, and I don't want to run the risk of accidentally forgetting to click this close comments. So how can we facilitate this process so you're not having to close the comments on every announcement you create? Well, the good news is, and we've talked about this before, but you may have forgotten, that there is a way to actually lock comments on every single announcement that you ever create in your course, and you'll never have to remember to do it again after you do this. Instead of changing the individual settings here, all you have to do, and this can be before you create any announcements, is go into your settings in your navigation bar here, and then you're going to scroll down, click on this link, more options. Now you want to make sure that you're in course details. If you're accidentally in sections, navigation, apps, or feature options, you won't find this. So make sure you're in course details, go down here, click more options, and then at the very bottom of this list of checklists, you'll see one that says disable comments on announcements. And then you just click update course details after ensuring that one was checked. And now all of the announcements I create from this point onward, I won't have to remember to do that. So I can actually create a second announcement. So I'm going to call this a new announcement. Again, this is going to be, this is the second announcement. And then I'm going to save that. Okay. And then I'm just going to jump into settings here, switch to student view. And you'll notice that without even clicking on the cog for that announcement, now when I go into student view and I look at announcements, both of these announcements, the example announcement from the very beginning and this new announcement, are locked to comments. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind if you don't want to have to be looking at your discussion boards and your inbox and anywhere else that students could have submitted comments. If you want the announcements to remain just a one-way form of information dispersal where you create these announcements, they let students know what's happening in the course, but you don't necessarily need to get replies to them, then that's the second way that you can essentially limit comments. And by doing the second form of limiting those comments, you will essentially make it to where none of your announcements can have comments from students on them. So feel free to experiment with that, see what works for you, and use the one that is best for you.